welcome along to episode 83 of Percussion Discussion. As usual, I'm going to ask you to please check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our world famous YouTube channel where you can find all of our conversations, past and present. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, it only takes a second, and this way it ensures that you don't miss any of the forthcoming interviews, of which there are plenty, and we wouldn't want you to miss those. If you prefer, I should say, to listen on the go, you can find all of our conversations in podcast form, and they're free to download from Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if that's your thing, you know what to do. And another favor, if you wouldn't mind, it only takes a few seconds, just leave a very short review. Only needs to be a few words, and it really helps get the word out there. So if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. On to today's guest, definitely one of the nicest guys in the business. He's done so much in his incredible career, but probably best known since 1981 for powering the incredible Saxon, the amazing new wave of British heavy metal band. They've been going strong, putting out albums regularly, and I had the great privilege of catching them in January in Manchester Apollo, and believe me, this guy, he defies his age with the energy and passion that he plays with still. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the wonderful Mr. Nigel Glockler.
You're very welcome.
Oh, well, it's great to have you, and I know you're not suffering the cold like the rest of us over in Blighty at the moment. You're over in Texas, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in Dallas. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. And is it incredibly hot, or is it bearable?
Actually, well, up till today's a bit cooler, but I mean, a couple of yesterday and the day before, it's probably in the 80s.
Right. Oh God, that's not so bad. Is 80s over there different to 80s over here, or is it?
No, it's just as hot.
Yeah. Yeah. You get air conditioning.
In August and stuff, it can get into the hundreds.
Dear. And are you all right with that still, even at that temperature?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, fair play. Well, I guess you got air conditioning in the house, so I guess that's something you can escape it. Yeah. Well, as I say, it's great to see you, and I was lucky enough to get along to one of the 40th anniversary shows. I think it was the first one in the Apollo in Manchester, and a breathtaking display. And I have to say, it's no secret that Saxon aren't young men anymore, and I mean that very respectfully. Yeah. But that doesn't reflect at all on the performance. How do you keep that energy up? Because it was full on from the word go, there was no let up. How do you keep that energy going?
I don't know, just patterns, I guess. I think the sort of thing is, when we're on tour, for instance, it's a case of not burning the candle at both ends,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't do anything special. It just happens, I guess. So,
yeah.
Luckily.
Because obviously you were incredibly match fit for that, and I don't think you'd done too much before it. Obviously, after the pandemic, the rules had slightly allowed a few more concerts and things. So I guess you wouldn't have been up to your usual kind of match fitness, would you?
No. I mean, it's funny. I mean, we did what do we do? We did Bloodstock last year, and then we did a Metal Hammer festival in Germany. That was last November.
Yeah.
So I mean, up until then, the only sort of work I've been doing had been recording.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily last year, I did some sessions for people, so that sort of blew the cobwebs out.
Yeah.
Which was great. So. But no, I always say, actually, it's funny because when you go on tour, it doesn't matter, well, I find it for myself, it doesn't matter how much you practice or whatever, there's nothing takes the place of that adrenaline you get. Sure. I can't personally get that match fit before a tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find, that the adrenaline kicks in, it's like, oh, geez. But the thing that annoys me is that you get to the end of a tour and I'm really cooking better than ever, and then the bloody thing finishes. So then you got to start over again,
But it was such an impressive gig. It was amazing, and it was a joy to see because the crowd were lapping up. It was a great lineup. Obviously, Uriah Heep, Diamond Head,
Yeah.
Girls' School. Great lineup, you know. Everyone gave it their all, and the crowd, and it was great to see. The crowd it was full. It was like the old days, and it was great.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, you know, when you get an audience like that, it carries you as well anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, it was great to see, and you know, let's hope things keep going upwards rather than backwards. And
well, yeah, as I say, I mean, we're starting. I think we've got festivals. I think nearly every weekend from the beginning of June right through the summer. I think.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get some momentum going for you, won't it, as well? You know. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, if you don't mind, I always like to go back to the beginnings, where like kind of first memories of music. I mean, forget drums for now. I mean, what's your first memory of music, Nigel?
Oh God.
Yeah, I know.
I think it was probably, you know, I've got an older brother, so you know he used to listen to a bit of music. I mean, so I mean, I just remember. I mean, even at the age of 3 or 4, hearing music in the house.
Yeah.
You know, so there always was from his point of view. My parents weren't so much into it. My mum was, but my dad's not so much. So that was it. And then, you know, and then I got into what was going on at the time, you know, because I mean, I started playing when I was 7 or 8.
Oh, right. Okay. So that was, one was pretty soon after the other then.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was sort of listening to, you know, the usual stuff like the Shadows and whatever, and all the bands that were around at that time.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and like Tony Meehan and Brian Bennett were my sort of kiddie heroes, you know.
Do you know what? It's amazing how many times Brian Bennett in particular, his name pops up through the most unlikely of drummers, you know. And another one was Simon Kirk. I think Brian Bennett was the first name out of his mouth, and it just shows the talent of the guy as well. And you know, no disrespect to Tony Meehan, of course, who was also a terrific player.
No, I mean, Brian's solo on the first Shadows album he did. What the hell was it? Was it Shadows to the Fore? I think was the first album he did. I think his solo was called Little B.
Oh yes, I think, yeah. I
mean, that just floored me, you know, at that age. Then, of course, we also had, like, you know, Let There Be Drums, Sandy Nelson, all that stuff. I was listening to all that stuff, you know. And I've got to kind of interject here because a few years ago, I went to the London Drum Show. Yeah. Right now, you know, during that time, you had Brian Bennett, and then sort of, you know, around that time and a little later during all the 60s and the 70s and stuff. I mean, one of the top session players was Clem Cottini.
Oh, yes. Clem's been on the show as well. Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, I was at the drum show. Who should walk in but Brian Bennett and Clem Cottini? And I was like, oh, God, yeah, I've got to have my photo taken with those guys. Brilliant.
What is it? There's a great line, and I can't remember who said it about Clem Cottini. You realized he was 15 of your favorite drummers.
No, it was great because, you know, he was doing so many of the sessions there, you know.
Incredible. I mean,
but then after that, you know, so I was sort of like into the Shadows and stuff, and then, you know, my brother suddenly brought home this Beatles EP, Twist and Shout, you know, with them sort of jumping on the top of a ruined building, sort of thing. Yeah. And which Genesis copied later, actually, yes, I seem to remember. And that was like, you know, there were the Beatles, and it was something like, whoa, what's going on here? So,
do you know what an amazing time to be harvesting influences? You know, I pity youngsters these days with I'm making myself sound really old, but what goes on in the charts these days, you can't compare to that time, can you? You know.
No, I think, you know, I keep saying to people, actually, sort of to friends and stuff like that, and sort of saying, you know, we've lived through the great musical revolution, really, when you think about all the 60s and stuff. Then you had all the psychedelia and flower power, and then prog, you know, and heavy rock starting. I mean, it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
You
know, and as I say, and you've been a huge part of it as well, slightly later on. So drum wise, so you were 7 or 8 when you started then. So how did that come about? Was it just hassling parents for drums and usual thing, begging?
Actually, funnily enough, no, it was a friend. It was a friend of my parents actually noticed that I was always tapping along when, you know, when a record was on or something, you know, or there was music on. So he sort of had a quiet word with my dad. And the next thing it was like, come on. So we went down to the sort of local little music shop in Brighton, and I came back with a little, like, sort of, I think it was like a 13-inch crash cymbal and a snare drum. And that's how it started. You know, orange glitter it was.
Oh, that's a classy colour. Classy colour, that. And then, so how soon before you're out gigging and, you know, doing what us drummers do?
Oh, God. No, I mean, well, what happened was that, you know, and then I sort of, you know, my dad bought me a bass drum and one tom, you know. And actually the funny thing about this, it was a rack, you know, 12-inch rack tom, but in those days there were two 12 inches. There was an imperial one, and it was like, it was a nightmare, like getting drum heads for it. You know, the number of times where, I've got a 12-inch here, and you go home and it was the wrong one.
The pre-international.
That's it.
That's the one.
It was like Imperial and whatever the other one was, American or something, and it was just slightly different. It was so frustrating, you know.
I think it was smaller, wasn't it?
I think so. And it was one that had one of those fittings that it clamped on the bass drum hoop.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, rather than come out of the shell, so to speak. And then after that, I started listening to the bass guitar more than anything, actually. So I ended up sort of getting a bass guitar, and some friends at school, we used to sort of go down the local music shops and find the sheet music, because you'd go down and find all the chord charts and everything. So we'd be, you know, around one of these guys' houses, you know, and whoever was there would get on my drum kit, and I was playing bass. We were playing stuff like Procol Harum and all that sort of thing, you know.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. And Small Faces, you know, and doing all that. And it was funny because I had, I'm trying to think, I can't remember the power of my amp. I mean, it wasn't very big, but I had the loudest amp.
Always a good position to be in.
But then at school, you know, we had music rooms at school, and I had to go on, you know, a more sort of up-to-date kit. And I thought, no, but I had no intention of doing it professionally.
Oh, really?
No.
Not music full stop, or just
no. When I was 14, I wanted to be a vet.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, so I know, a bit of a change there.
You've worked with animals all your life, to be fair.
So I wanted to be that, but in those days you needed Latin.
Right, okay.
And I was useless at that. I just couldn't get to grips with it at all. So that went out the window, you know. But no, we started doing, you know, we got a sort of band thing together, and we sort of played at school, and then we were going around little youth clubs and stuff like that, you know, sort of doing Hendrix and just things like that. I was back on the drums by this time, you know, and it just sort of went from there, really, I guess.
Wow, that's it's quite a musical education, that, isn't it? And I think that's the way it should be, really. You know, because I forgot to whereabouts did you grow up then, Nigel?
Born and bred in Hove.
Oh, right, okay.
Hove, East Sussex. Yeah.
Yeah. So was there much of a scene around there at that time, or gigging wise?
I mean, later on when I started sort of, then, you know, you could go in pubs and stuff like this. And it was, I mean, unfortunately, some of them have been sort of flattened now, and hotels put on them and everything. But we had our sort of haunts that we'd go to, you know, once we were of drinking age, that we'd go to, and these were the places that had the gigs in.
Sure.
You know, and it was then that I sort of turned professional. Later on, and my first sort of band was a pro band that was based in Brighton and Hove.
Yeah.
And we ended up actually with Hans Zimmer on keyboards.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we were doing, the band was called Krakatoa, and we were sort of doing like sort of the original band started off with a girl singer, and they were the original lineup was just a 4-piece, was very into bands like Rufus, you know, this sort of soul stuff, soul rock type stuff. But then when I joined, we sort of veered a little bit away from that, and you know, because I was listening to bands like Kansas and stuff like that, so we started veering towards that sort of thing.
Wow, Hans
But,
Zimmer.
but I mean, the crazy thing was, so this would have been like 76, 77, 78. And we ended up with Terry Bennett singing for us, who was in the band called Sassafras.
Right, okay.
Who were, he was from Nottingham, I think, but they were based, basically a Welsh band. And so we ended up with him. And I mean, we this is when the new wave sort of, the punk thing sort of hit. And we were selling out town halls and things. We couldn't get a record deal. It was hopeless.
Because of the whole,
because of the new wave thing, and we ended up actually using a lot of dead time in Maison Rouge, which I think was this producer called Robin Black, actually, who was producing Jethro Tull and Sabbath he'd done and everything. And so we were with him, but it was just like beating our heads against the wall. So in the end, we split up.
it's a shame, and I'm sure that was like the death knell of many bands around that era as well.
Yeah, I think it was. It was a shame, but it was just like we can't go any further. So it was after that then that I started doing sessions.
Yeah, and that was kind of the era for it as well, wasn't it? There was lots of them about in those days.
Yeah, there was. I mean, it was funny, but also in those days, it was like I got told you got to have a session, what they called a session fixer.
Right.
Like an agency in London or wherever, and they'd have drummers on their books and whatever. And this guy came to a studio where I was doing a session. He said, "You've got to learn to read." So I went and had lessons, reading lessons, but never ever used them, because you always got the track in advance, so you'd listen to it, or you'd go in a rehearsal studio and play through them, and then go in the studio and do it. So, and I think the reading thing was for the, if you were going to be in the pit of a London show or something, which didn't appeal to me at all. So
obviously essential at that point, but yeah, as I say, it's horses for courses, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to some of the the hardened Saxon fans watching this, quite a surprise maybe to find out that you played for Toyah. For a good while, and you played on the album, really, Anthem. That was kind of the real. I think it was it the second or third album? I can't remember, but it was the one that really went off.
Yeah, she'd done 2 studio albums and a live album before that.
Right. Yeah.
And then that came about because I was doing a session with this guy called, I think he's from New Zealand, a guy called Zane Griff, who'd had an album out before. And Charlie Morgan, I think, had done the drums on the first album.
Oh, right. Good old Charlie.
I think that's true. But Hans rang me up from Germany and said, because he'd played on the first album, he said, "This friend of mine is doing an album, do you want to do it as a drummer?" And I went, yeah. So we went in. There was Mark from, who was the keyboard player from Bebop Deluxe. And we had, oh God, who was that? And the guitarist from Paul Young's band.
Oh, right.
Who then went to the Who, and Zane was playing bass, and we were just sort of rehearsing a whole album, and he suddenly said, "Oh, let's go around. I've got to check out some photos or something." So we went round to this photographer's, and in walked Toyah.
Right.
And then 3 days later, I got a call. So, and that, for It's a Mystery.
That's incredible. I mean, it's such it's an iconic album, isn't it? There's no question. With, I mean, It's a Mystery, and I Want to Be Free was the other massive single, wasn't it, as well?
That was on that. Yeah, actually, the biggest single was Thunder in the Mountains.
Was it really?
Which came out after that. Yeah, me and Adrian, the keyboard player, wrote that.
Right, I didn't realize
after a week, because what happened was we did a tour of universities and stuff just before It's a Mystery came out. And so it was all unit, and it was the punk thing, spitting and gobbing and everything. And exactly. I mean, I was like, thank God I'm at the back. I sort of saw one flying towards me, and I sort of kind of willed it down. It lost its velocity just before it got to the drum kit. I mean, Phil and Joel and Toyah were just covered in this stuff. But then when It's a Mystery came out and was a hit, the audience just suddenly changed.
Yeah, thankfully.
It was amazing. You could see it. It was really bizarre. And then, we recorded Anthem.
Yeah.
And then went on tour again. And I mean, that whole tour just sold out like boom. you know.
Was it noticeably different, obviously venue wise, I guess, after
Oh yeah, definitely. Because before we were playing all universities.
Yeah,
you know, and
I guess you were into Odeons and Apollos.
We played the Rainbow.
Yeah.
So that was like the sort of probably the biggest gig of that particular tour. Although we did the Rainbow, I think the Rainbow, if I remember rightly, I think we did the Rainbow on a break from it wasn't actually in the tour, I don't think. I can't really remember, but that was filmed and came out on a video and stuff. So
Toyah, I mean, you just, you watch your playing style now and you just don't associate that with Toyah, do you? And obviously it's a credit to what you do. You have to be a chameleon as a session musician, as you were at the time, and I guess you have to fit in with whatever's thrown in front of you. And
I mean, it was funny. I mean, I was just, on one hand, it was, I was sort of listening to Rush during that time, but then I was getting off on stuff like sort of, like Susie and the Banshees and stuff like that. I mean, Budgie was great. I loved his playing. Always used to like listening to what he was doing because he was just, and Ultravox, that was another.
Yeah.
So and Japan. So all those bands. So yeah, it was really, we were all into that kind of stuff. So it was, I was trying to find a sort of different angle maybe to come at this kind of music. But again, as I was saying, I was listening to Rush and got all the guys in Toyah into Rush, which is funny. But then, and then we were on the tour bus, and what the hell were we playing on the tour bus? Moody Blues.
God, right, gone back again, right? Okay.
Yeah, it was like we were listening to the Moody, like Days of Future Past and, In Search of a Lost Chord. We were listening to all that stuff. It was great, So everyone in the band was like listening to various things,
So literally influences flying in from every corner.
Literally. Oh, God, yeah. I mean, and the other thing was that actually pre that sort of time, I mean, prior to the sort of, in the gap between Krakatoa and getting into the session thing, I was listening to a lot of fusion. That's what I was really into. Oh. Like Billy Cobham and, Lenny White and all that stuff. Chick Corea, and Larry Coryell. I was like lapping all that stuff up,
Right. So, and were you, I'm guessing you probably didn't have time to practice, but were you trying some of these stuff out in like rehearsal rooms and what have you, or some of the Billy Cobham stuff? And
oh, yeah. I mean, I still do. Yeah. When we do a sound check, because I like to get up there and have a quick blast on my own, before the guitarists, the stringers, as we call them, arrive and start drowning everything out. I like to get up there and I always play that. Is it Stratus? I think it is.
Stratus,
whichever one.
Yes.
Ding and ding and ding and ding and ding and ding and ding. That one.
Great song.
In fact, we had a funny thing actually. One sound check, we were the band actually we were in sort of a bit of a lull. Because I think with the grunge thing had hit, and we had Little Angels were doing some, who were happening at the time.
Yeah.
They were doing and great. I mean, Toby's a good friend now. We know Toby really well.
Great voice.
And I just remember we were in, I think it was Belgium, and there was me, Paul, and Nibs. And I think Little Angels thought they were going to kick our asses, who are these old gits, And they sort of went, me, Paul, and Quinny and Nibs. We were playing another Cobham track, the double kick drum boogie thing, and Little Angels walked in, and their faces just went.
Lovely.
So I mean, so we even do that stuff nowadays, particularly with Paul, we just like jamming, and Doug's into sort of bands like Toto and stuff, so we jam all that. We just jam everything, We actually did a thing in Soundcheck a couple of tours back where we played the James Bond theme, videoed it.
Oh, incredible! It's good. It's good to have a versatile band, isn't it?
Yeah. Or then I'll suddenly start playing some big band jazz type drums, and people just muck in. It's great,
I mean, it's nice to hear that a band actually sound checks, and
oh yeah,
because
Yeah.
so many these days, you know, it's down to the crew, and then you just turn up and do your bit. And I wouldn't be comfortable doing that, I don't think.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I've got to sit on my kit and get, acclimatized to it at the whatever gig it is, and get comfortable.
And I have to ask, obviously, you've mentioned Billy Cobham. You use a lot of Tom's. There's a similarity between your kit and Billy Cobham's kit. Is any influence comes from that, or is that just a natural thing? Well, and Neil Peart, of course.
I think really, I mean, the first sort of, I've said this before, actually. I mean, a big influence on me was the drummer in PFM, Franz de Kioch.
Okay.
And he was the first one, that I heard that was playing a big kit with a lot of toms. Hence, when Tama came out, I think Tama and Pearl came out with them at the same time. Because I remember A-Bing them in a shop. Which one should I get? The Tama one, so 6, 8, 10, 12, all the single-headed concert toms. And I ended up with a Tama kit with that. And then that's where that came from, though, from the PFM thing. And then, of course, you had Neil Peart from Rush was using that size kit. So those are my influences. And Simon Phillips, of course, because he was using, in those days, he was using a Ludwig Octoplas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
was it always 2 bass drums for you?
Not in the Toyah thing. It was, oh no, you couldn't have 2 bass drums in a new wave band. That was like, oh no, couldn't do that, So no, that was definitely. Although I think some people did. Actually, funnily enough, we did like a playback thing at I think it was Music Laden or something in Germany, and with Toyah, and there was a double sort of Vista-like kit on there.
Oh, nice, yeah.
But it was funny because we had to go on after Motorhead.
Okay.
Right. An Animal completely knocked the whole thing over before we went on. It was like, oh, geez, it was like, quick, get it
up, Oh, lovely. I love hearing stuff like that. It's
well,
nice.
the other funny thing, as I say, like PFM, and they still are one of my favourite bands. I love them. In fact, I used to get into a lot of the Italian drummers. I love the Italian drummers. And I remember with Saxon, we were doing a playback thing. It was a bit like an Italian Top of the Pops, and I'd seen people on Top of the Pops, they sort of taking the mickey out of it all, like Bob Geldof with his pretending a bloody candelabra as a saxophone, and all this stuff. And they sort of put 2 kits together on this thing. And so we sort of did the thing, and I sort of, shoved the whole lot, put a lot of it over and everything. And Steve put his bass through the bass drum head, at the end. And we were just like walking around with a jabble thing going on at the end. It's like, it's obvious it's mimed. And suddenly it was like, and the next thing they said, right, we've got to set it back up because we've got to do the intro now, like introduce the band. And there was all this mayhem, So we quickly put, so Steve rested his bass against the bass drum so you wouldn't see the hole, And anyway, we were leaving, and I suddenly saw this guy rush out with this bass drum head with Yamaha on it, with a hole in it. So this guy was obviously rushing out to try and get a replacement.
Oh, God.
And who should bloody well turn up but PFM? It was their kit.
No.
Yeah.
Trashed your hero's drums. Oh my God.
I know. Like, well, actually, I didn't do that. Steve would put his bass through the test. So obviously this executive was like rushing out to try and get, and it was really annoying because I'd never met them. I've still never met them, and it was something like, we're leaving, and like they kept, no, and off we drove, and they were turning up, and I went, oh God, because I suddenly remembered Franz used Yamaha. Right. So they'd put 2 kits together, Hey ho.
There you go. Now, talking drums, obviously the vision I have of you in like 80s, probably mid to late 80s, is you sat behind that huge Premier projector kit.
The barbed wire one.
Yes, that was a projector, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a huge.
Although it didn't have the inner shell thing.
That was the resonator, wasn't it, with the inner shell?
Oh, that's right. That's a resonator. Yeah, duh. Yeah.
Now, I'm a bit of an anorak when it comes to premieres. So,
okay.
I mean, at that time, Premiere were huge, weren't they? You know, I have a Premiere kit behind me actually, and that's my memory of you. I think I saw you in in a club somewhere. It was at the time when grunge was coming in, and what you guys were doing, sadly, kind of wasn't the in thing anymore, and it was a quiet man. But I remember being blown away totally. Happy memories with Premiere, Nigel?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was great. I used to go up there. There was who was the guy? There was Steve Jordan was my sort of A&R guy, and a girl called Sue Stanton.
Right.
They were the ones that sort of gave me the deal and everything. But they were great. And I remember when the next kit came along, I can't remember the guy's name, the guy in the paint shop. I said, we were trying to sort out, a color for the kit or whatever. And he said, I've got this. What do you think of this? So the kit that next came along, that was the only one done in that color.
Really?
Yeah, he said,
kind of a grey sort of color.
We'll just keep this one for you. It was like a sort of really dark grey with different colored flecks of glitter in it.
I remember it.
No, this is, you're getting the only one of this. Wow. But the weird thing, I mean, Premiere was great. They were really nice. And who was the other? Roger Hill was the other A&R guy up there. So, and got on with them fantastically, But it was very strange when Yamaha took over.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Because there were certain areas in the factory that Premiere people were not allowed in.
Really?
Yeah, to the Yamaha part, you weren't allowed in there.
Wow. So it wasn't one company, it was very much two that had been thrown
together. It was, well, I presume it was one company, but I think the people that work, if you say, so the Yamaha people working the Yamaha stuff, they were in their section and the Prem people were in their section.
Wow, how strange.
But it was great because I just, before that I'd been with Ludwig.
Yeah, of course.
And I mean, I'm still friends with Bill Ludwig, good friends with him, and but I think once they, the company got sold to Selma, I think it was, then sort of, the sort of quality went down a bit.
Yeah.
But I still have the thing of, I actually had Bill Ludwig teching for me at a gig per se. Yeah, and it was funny. I did this thing a couple of weeks ago with Carmine and Vinny, and Bill was on it as well. So we were having a right laugh about it. And I just remembered, Bill, we were doing this. We were doing this open air festival in Chicago, and I think Sammy Hagar was headlining it. I think it was, but this is pre me having my drums on a rack.
Yeah, sure.
And it was incredibly windy. and obviously, the wind was just taking the cymbals and the stands just going bonk. So I ended up with my tech and Bill Ludwig prone on his stomach, in front of my bass drums, holding the stand so they wouldn't blow over.
Dear me. We're obviously talking Bill the Third, aren't we? This is
yeah,
absolutely. Well, Bill was a guest on the show about a month ago, and he was a great sport. He was fabulous. So
he's a great lad.
He's lost none of his passion for drums, has he?
No, I mean, he's doing some nice drums.
Absolutely. So that's a great story. Really is. I love it. So, and speaking of British drums, I'm a huge advocate of Britsh Drum Company. I think the world of them. I've got one. But I'm assuming it was a bit of a no-brainer for you, Nigel, with BDC.
Yeah, no, it was funny really, because I came across, and I was, because I go to NAMM every year.
Yeah.
And I went to NAMM, and they had a big stand there and everything. So I was just nosing around at what there was, and I got talking to one of their guys, Tony, and he said, "Oh, you ought to come up to the factory." Nico was there, and Nico and I get on like a house on fire. So, but I mean, I had no intention of doing anything, sort of swapping, because I was with Duelist, and I still use their pedals. They're my favourite pedals ever. Really? And Tony said, "Come up," and so I went up to Stockport, and what was really nice was as soon as I got there, front door, there was a big sign in there saying, "Welcome to our friend Nigel Glockler from Saxon." And I thought, wow, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I went in there, had a nose round, and then went to Nico's drum store.
Yes.
With Craig Buckley took me there. So we went there, and on the way back, we were just stopping outside BDC, and the phone went, and it was Nico from Florida. So, and Craig said to me, "You never guess who I've got in the car with me, Nico." And he said, "Who's that?" And I went, "Hello, mate." And he went, "Nice." So that sort of thing. So we got, so we had a chat over the line, and then went into there, and then Craig, Keith, and Mel. So right, boardroom. I mean, nothing was said, nothing was discussed at all.
Yeah.
And they said, Craig said, "What drums do you use? What size drums do you use?" So he sort of noted all my sizes down, put ×2 alongside it, and said, "Well, there you go. What do you think?" And I went, "Yeah, great, done." That was it, because I met all the people in the fact they were great, really great bunch of people, and the drums sound, wonderful, so.
The attention to detail inside and out is just it's like furniture, isn't it? Furniture that you're allowed to hit with sticks.
It was unfortunate because I'd kind of left Prem, and then Keith came in.
Yeah,
you see, so I sort of missed that transition period in the Prem thing. So, but yeah, I mean, his attention to detail with his woodworking and stuff is just brilliant.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, this is coming out in a couple of weeks, but. It was the UK Drum Show last weekend, and I was lucky enough to catch up with all the guys with Keith and Mel and Craig and everybody at the weekend, and the band was just phenomenal. It really was, So
I would love to have gone to that actually, but it was a bit of a far journey for me.
Yeah, a little bit. But so your kit is actually in production, isn't it? As we speak.
The UK kit, the UK kit. I think it's almost is the shells are finished now, so I'm hoping that it's pretty close to being done, and then we'll get the US kit done then.
Yeah,
and that can come over. But there's no kind of rush for that because I don't think we'll be doing any US shows until early in the new year.
Sure.
So they've got a bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, hey, but the thing is, a kit like yours, it's a lot of drums, isn't it? It's not, you're not talking a three shell drum kit here. It's
No, I mean, again, as I say, I mean, the reason I have such a kit like that is I get off on sound when I'm playing. There's nothing like I want the biggest drum kit ever. It's nothing to do with that. I just get off on sound. It's like with the cymbal things. I have lots of little bell cymbals and all that kind of because I just finding something a little bit different inspires me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I could tell from the show back in January. The playing was just wonderful from the whole band. Yourself included, and Biff just sounds. It's never sounded any different. He just sounds.
No, I think Biff is singing better than ever now. Personally, he's got that. As he gets older, he's got this. I've said this before to people. He's got this little rasp in his voice now, which gives it a lot of his own sort of thing. So I think he's singing. I think everyone in the band's performing great, and it was just so nice to do these gigs after not being able to do them for so long. I mean, I was really nervous. When we did Bloodstock last August. I mean, I had a rental BDC kit.
Yeah, sure.
And, but it was like quite nerve wracking because, I mean, I always get worried before a gig anyway. I'm always, I'm always, oh God, I sort of start getting ready an hour beforehand.
Yeah.
I can't stand rushing. And then I'm sort of walking around like backwards and forwards, waiting to get on, but I'm always nervous. But particularly was this one because we hadn't played live for 2 years nearly.
I'd imagine hearing that, lots of drummers hearing that, the fact that you still get nervous is probably a nice thing to hear, I think most people do. I think if people say they don't, they're probably lying a little bit,
Yeah, no, you're probably right. I mean, obviously everyone's different. But the funny thing is, again, when we sort of in the sort of 90s and stuff, I was sort of if we were on the road, which is how we got Dougie in the band, because I was playing in a band that he eventually joined just as like a, you know, like a sort of club pubby sort of, we were playing stuff like Little Feat,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of sort of funk blues type stuff.
Sure.
So I was doing that to keep the old hand in, and I actually found that more nerve-wracking than playing at Wacken.
Really?
Oh yeah, because the audience are right in your face.
Yeah, I suppose.
You know, they're right in your face. Whereas at Wacken, yeah, you got 75,000 people there, but there's a bit of a gap.
And I'd imagine something like the big festivals. You know, you say you like to be prepared, and there earlier. I'm guessing you don't get a lot. You probably don't get a chance to play on the stage before you're on. You don't get a sound check as such. So,
well, so I mean, sometimes if you're headlining, obviously you do.
Yeah.
But if you're, you know, but no, I like to try and get. I mean, I always try and get to a festival a bit early, because, you know, usually a lot of the times, you know, your kits are wheeled on and wheeled off.
Yeah.
So I like to get there early and get on it, you know, and just at the side of the stage or whatever, and I just sit on it and do a little bit of tippy tap, not too much, but just to make sure, yeah, that's right, that's everything's right, boom, boom, boom. And it just, I don't know, it just sort of settles.
It makes perfect sense, I think. And hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk just about your Inspirations album. That was I was quite surprised when I cast my ears on that.
Yeah.
Some great choices, some interesting choices as well.
Yeah.
Hold the line. I never thought I would hear Saxon covering a Toto song, I'll be honest.
Funnily enough, we had a, I think it was on Twitter or Instagram, we had a thing from Steve saying, "Great job you guys did on it, brilliant." Really? Yeah.
Perfect. That's all you need, isn't it?
Because we know him, and, you know, we've done festivals with Toto and stuff, so we kind of know them, you know. But he sent a sort of thing saying, "We feel really honoured. Thank you guys for doing that, and what a great version," you know. But
superb.
Yeah, there was, you know, there was quite, as you say, there was some interesting stuff on that album.
I mean, I love Paint It Black. Brilliant. I have to say, one of my favourites, and it's for you, it's probably straight down the line, Four on the Floor, and this is Problem Child. I love the song anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite from that album, or are you?
No, I don't know really. I mean, I like them all for that. I mean, you know, everyone sort of put in what inspired them, kind of thing. I mean, one of my ones was, Evil Woman, even though it wasn't a Sabbath song per se, but it was on their first album. And I always remember when I bought that first album, that was the song I played all the time. Wow. So that was one. And the other one I put in, which actually wasn't on the album, but was on the B-side of a single, was One Last Cold Kiss by Mountain.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm a big Mountain fan, still am, you know. So
I'll have to revisit that, because there's
yeah, you'll probably find it on one of these, you know, streaming things. Be there. And we did another one that wasn't actually on there. It was Shoot Shoot UFO. We did that.
Oh, great song.
Yeah. So yeah, it was interesting. Everyone put their sort of, you know, 4 pennyworth in, whatever, and it was great, you know, and it worked out. So
it was just one I wasn't expecting, you know. But it was good, and I enjoyed it, and it was a nice surprise rather than a.
Yeah. No, what happened was, because I mean, you know, with the album out now, Carpe Diem, I'd actually done the drum tracks at the end of 2019
for Carpe Diem.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I did them. And then, I mean, we redid some things a bit later, but yeah, that was the plan. And then, you know, so that was it. And the album was actually meant to come out the following year, but of course the pandemic hit, and the record company didn't want to release the album because we couldn't tour on it.
No, I understand that. Yeah.
So, you know, we'd always been, you know, we've done covers in the past anyway, you know, Ride Like the Wind and stuff like that. And so sort of between the two sort of parties, it said, well, we've got a gap in the schedule now. Why don't you do a covers album as an interim stopgap? So that's how that came about.
So as far as recording that, I guess you were all pretty much in the same space. There was none of this remote recording and what have you.
No. We, funnily enough, actually, we went to this stately home.
Oh, nice.
So we did it was a bit of a Zeppelin, actually. I mean, the drums were set up in this great big stairwell, and the other guys were in what I guess was like a library sort of thing. it was a bit of a bummer for me actually, because they were in the library. I mean, the thing was, this stately home, I think there wasn't anyone actually living there at the point, because they were having rewiring and stuff was due to be done. I think there'd been some changes in the family or whatever. But you know, so these guys, the rest of the guys were in the sort of library, and it had like a nice log burner in it. And I thought, great, they're nice and toasty. I was in this bloody stairwell and I was freezing, you know.
Very comfortable. Oh,
bloody drummer always gets it, doesn't it? I don't know. But no, it was great. I mean, you know, it was good fun to do. As I say, we were all there, and it wasn't remote. They were in another room to me.
Yeah, of course.
You know, but it was all, you know,
good,
done at the same time.
And let's talk Carpe Diem. What a monster of an album. It really is, in every respect, from sound to songs to production to it's just terrific. You must be proud of that one. Yeah, definitely. You know, and as I always say, it was like, I mean, you know, Andy Sneap did the old sounds again on it, and you know, I love working with Andy. He's great. We have a good laugh, and then, you know, we sort of he sort of sends me, you know, tracks that I've done. He sends them back to me. What do you think of this? You know, if he's mucked around with the EQ sound wise, so we're communicating with it all the time. Yeah, you know. So but the thing was, sorry, go on. I was going to say, you get a say in it if there's something production wise you don't like, mix wise. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Andy always I trust Andy implicitly with the drum sound. He's great, you know, and again, I've said this before, but he actually understands what we're about as a band. He gets the power on you know, recording wise that we have live, whereas I think in the past sometimes producers haven't really understood where we are. I mean, yeah, they've done a great job, but it's not really us, if you know what I mean. Totally. You know, I think the closest one that came was probably Jeff Glixman, I think, you know, with Power and the Glory. You know, I mean, that's a hard hitting album. I mean, absolutely. But no, I mean, you know, I think each album on its own stands up for, you know, what it is. I mean, Charlie Bauer, great producer and stuff. You know, so but Andy's definitely put the icing on the cake. As regards us, I'm not saying these other guys aren't great producers, because they are. Of course. I mean, Charlie Bauerfein's a great producer, you know. Yeah. But Andy really gets us. Yeah. Well, you know, and that's evident from the quality of the album and the songs. I mean, The Pilgrimage is one of my favorite songs on the album. I think. Funnily enough, a lot of people say that as well. That's us sort of almost going back to our roots again, I guess, you know. Yeah. You know, rather than, you know, I think that's probably one of my favorite tracks on the album as well, because it's, you know, it's a bit of a groove merchant. It's great. Which, it's all very well doing all this fast manic stuff, but I think, you know, you've got to have some groove in there as well. Yeah, it could well be another anthem, that one, I reckon, personally. But yeah, quite possibly, yeah. Well, look, Nigel, it's been an absolute pleasure. And before we go, I have to thank our friend for setting this up. Our mutual friend and your ex-drum tech, you were telling me, from the Toyah days, Mr. Paul Watts. Yeah, CW, as he's known. Ah, well, yeah, makes sense. Obviously. Oh, yeah, CW. Less of a mouthful. So thanks, Paul. CW. I've got a great shot of him, because he used to have really long hair. And I've got a great shot of him. And it's in front of my kit on a Toyah gig. And the sun's streaming down. It looks like a ray coming down and hitting him. And he's sort of looking down, and this ray's hitting him. And it's sort of CW in the light of God, you know. Magnificent. Oh. Honestly, Nige, it's been a real pleasure, and I can't thank you enough for giving up your time. So thank you very much for asking me. You know, it's brilliant. As soon as CW said this, I went, yeah, sure, why not? You know, great. You know, it's been a treat. It really has, and I know everyone's going to enjoy this. So thank you very much indeed. It's appreciated. Thank you. Cheers, Nige. Take care, mate. Bye bye. Hope to see you on the road somewhere then. You certainly will. Take care, mate. Bye bye. All right, mate. Bye.